Alright, so let's move on to the next question, which is encode and decode strings. The reason why I'm solving this on LeetCode platform is because I don't have LeetCode Premium. So let's look at the question. So we basically need to implement two functions, which are encode and decode. Encode function will have a vector of strings as a parameter, and we need to derive a string from it, so we need to encode it in a string format. And whereas for decode we would use the same string which we encoded and then get the original string of vectors. So there can be multiple ways of solving this particular questions. Let's look at the examples. Let's look at the examples, but it won't tell us much. The constraints are also not too deep. So let's focus on one function first. Let's focus on writing the encode function. How can you encode a string? You have to arrange it in a specific format such that it is easier for us to decode. A simple way, you can either just append each string in a vector of strings, but then you will have problems decoding it, because how would you know up till when there's a word? So one important thing which I can think of is that I need to somehow store the length of each word. So if I am storing the length of each word, for example, in this first example, I can have a string like 4 neat, and then 4 code, 4 love, 4 3 you. This way I know when I'm decoding, I will look at a character and I will see up till when there is what's the length of the word up to which the word can exist, and then I need to push it in my vector. However, there's a slight problem in this. Let's say that a word is of a 2-digit length or a 3-digit length. The length of any word can go up to 200. So let's say that it is 90, 94 or something like that. So you don't know how to read. How would you know that a particular character is a number? And how would you say that is not part of the word itself? Like, a word can also include numbers as well. Let's say there can be a word numeric 1, 9. How would you know that this one is part of what we evaluated as the size of string number, or is it the actual word? So we need some sort of a character, some sort of a special character which we can append when we are done with calculating the length of the word. So for example, we can do something like 4 neat, but in between 4 and neat we would have a special character which would tell us that this is the breaking point. Now from here onwards you can look up to 4 characters, which will be the word itself. Things will be more clear when we code it. So let's start. First, let's write the data type, since we need to return a string, so I declared an empty string. Now let's traverse through our vector of strings, and as I said that we want the length of the string. So my first addition would be str.size, since we want it. Now we need to also append a special character. This special character can be anything, but let's say that it's a number, like hash is a number, and then the string itself. Okay, so by doing this, we know that up to those number of characters we will have our string itself, and then finally we return our answer. Why we did this? It will help us to decode our string. So let's start writing the decoding function. It will be a vector of strings. I'll name it as answer, and we will need the length of the string. Let's name it s, and let's initialize our index to be 0. Then we move on to our loop, and so we basically need firstly we want to know what is the number of word, what is the size length of a particular word. So I would need another variable, and I will check in this while my s of j is not equal to this symbol. That's why we put it in the first place. So while my s of j is not equal to hash, then I know that those are the size of the string. So I'll just increment it until I encounter the hash. And so now I know that the length will basically be from I to that j value. J is currently pointing to the hash symbol. Okay, so remember that. And you know that sub-str functions, the first parameter is the starting index. Starting index we know is I, and the second parameter is the length of it. And what will be the length? If my j is currently pointing to hash and my number started from I, so that would be basically j minus I, right? That would be my length. And stoi is basically string to integer. Okay, because this originally is a string, but we want the length of it, which is of type int. So now we have the length of it. Now we need to push a value in our vector. The value will be the actual word itself. So what's the actual word? Okay, think about it. So if we look at this example, it's 4 neat, 4 hash and neat, and then we move on to 4 hash and code. So we have figured out that initially my I was pointing at 4, and after this my j is pointing to hash. Now we have calculated that length is basically 1, and the length is basically 1. So now I want my j is pointing to hash, and my actual string is starting from the index j plus 1, right? And what is the length of it? Length we have already calculated, which is the len variable. Okay, and the final step is to move our I pointer. So now we have written the word is actually neat. Our j was pointing to hash, j plus 1 is pointing to n, and my len is basically 4. So my j plus 1 to len, which is neat, is pointing here, right? So how much will I increment my I by? What will be my new I? My new I will basically be j plus 1 plus len. That will be my new I. And finally I'll return my answer vector. Let's run and check if everything is fine or not. Okay, we are getting some errors. We are getting runtime error. Let's look what we did incorrectly. It doesn't really tell us. It's the console. Okay, doesn't really tell us. The encode function, we basically okay, this seems alright to me. Okay, one thing, it's when we are storing str.size, so we want the number, we want it to be in string type, and str.size is by default integer. So to convert integer to string, we will write a function toString. Now let's run and see if it runs fine or not. And there you go. Let's submit it. Okay, it runs fine. So what will be the time and space complexity of this solution? So for the encode function, we are basically running through every string of our vector of strings. So this, assuming that the length of strings vector is n, this will run for n time. And similarly, this I, even if it increments one by one, it is at most going till n, from 0 to n, so that is n. So both functions have time complexity of O of n. And what will be the space complexity? We are not using anything apart from this couple of variables, so it's constant, so big of 1. Now let's look at our time complexity. Okay, it doesn't show, but yeah, so the time and space complexity, time complexity is O of n and space complexity is constant.